All right, this is the review for exam 2 for accounting 6302. I've got a number of example problems here, things you might find similar to what you'll see on the exam. And so here we've got, and I've emailed you all these questions. So we've got here two products. TexFab is manufacturing GT 450 and 600. And then there's a number of break-even questions that they want to know. So number one says, what is the break-even in dollars? If the sales mix stays the same in the statement presented above there. Okay, so the easiest way to get the break-even point in dollars is to take the fixed costs, which are the 20,000 right here. Okay, 20,000 fixed costs, and divide it by the contribution margin ratio, right? And so the total you can see is given right here. This is already given to you. So the contribution margin ratio is 42.5%. So we divide that by 0.425. And so the break even will be 47,005, and we're going to round up to 58.82. Okay, and then number two says, if TexFab Company sales mix becomes 50,000 of product GT 450 and 50,000 of product GT 600, what will be the break-even point in sales dollars? So now we've got a 50-50 split as opposed to right now it's 25-75, right? So 50-50 split would be $50,000 in sales and $40,000 in variable costs, gives us 10,000 contribution margin. And so then the GT 100 would be 50,000 and 25,000 because it's 50%. It's told up in the problem that the variable costs are 50% of the sales. And so that's going to be 25,000. And so our total would be 100,000, and 65,000 would be 35,000. So our contribution margin ratio would be 35,000 divided by 100,000 equals 35%, 0.35. And so what's the break even? Assuming our fixed costs remain at 20,000, we divide that by 0.35. And it would jump to 57,143, again rounded up for that. And then finally, why have the break-even point and the amount of operating income changed? Because if you go back up to our problem up here, we only had a 20% contribution margin ratio for product GT 450. But we were only selling 25% of our total sales. Now, and that moved up to 50% of our total sales, still getting 20% contribution margin, whereas the GT 600 was selling 75% of the sales, and it was getting 50% contribution margin. So, the split becoming more towards the GT 450 with the lower contribution margin ratio means that our break even has to go up. All right. So number 2, we have Fashions Incorporated is a retail store that sells sweaters and jackets. In the past, it has bought all its sweaters from a supplier for $20 a unit and had no fixed cost for this line of clothing. However, Fashions has the opportunity to acquire a small manufacturing facility where it could produce its own sweaters as follows. The selling price is $30 per unit. The variable costs are $15, and the total fixed costs are $150. If Fashion acquired the manufacturing facility, how many sweaters would it have to produce in order to break even? Okay, so our fixed costs, so on 1, our fixed costs are $150,000. Our contribution margin is the 30 minus the 15, or 15. So 150,000 divided by 15, they would have to sell 10,000 sweaters in order to break even. That's per month. And then number 2 says in order to earn an after-tax profit of $125,000 a month, how many sweaters would Fashion have to sell if it buys its sweaters from the supplier? 2, if it produces its own sweaters. Okay, if it buys the sweaters from the supplier, remember it has no fixed costs. So then we only have to worry about the after-tax profit of $125,000 divided by 1 minus the tax rate, all that divided by the contribution margin, which we were told we have the $30 minus the 20 is 10. Okay, so the tax rate we're told is 30% right here. And so 125,000 divided by 1 minus 30% is 0.7, or 70%. So we got we need 178,570, 143, and we're going to divide that by 10. So 17,858 rounded up. And then part 2, if it produces its own sweaters. Okay, so now we have the 150,000 fixed rate plus the 125 minus 1 minus the tax rate. And that's all divided by the contribution margin of 15. So that's going to go to 150,000. Plus, this is going to be the same, 178, 571, 43, all divided by 15. So we've got 328,571.43 divided by 15 would equal 21,904. So 905 rounding up on that. And number 3, what is the profit in different sales volumes in terms of the two options under consideration? Show the computation of operating income to prove your answer. Okay, so 3, we put the two formulas together, right? We have so the first formula of operating income is we've got $10. That's the contribution if we're buying them, no fixed cost. 10x, x being the number sold, is going to equal 15x minus 150,000. Okay, so now we just do a little bit of algebra here. We get 150,000 equals 5x. So I've subtracted 10x from both sides, added 150 to both sides, equals 5x. X equals 150,000 divided by 5 equals equals 30,000. So at 30,000 sweaters, they are indifferent. Now that's operating income. That's not after tax income, and it asked us to prove that. So we sales would be 30,000 times 30 equals 900,000 in revenue. 900,000 in revenue minus variable costs of 30,000 times 20 is 600,000 equals 300,000. That would be the operating income if we buy. This, our variable, our contribution margin. Well, this is the contribution margin, but then the fixed cost equals 0 if we buy the sweater, so we get 300,000 operating income there. We get the 90. This is 30,000 times 15 is 450,000. That's the variable cost per unit. Gives us 450,000 minus the 150 fixed cost gives us 300,000 operating income. All right, so that's the second question. Our third question, we have the Subway sandwich shop is seeking to sell new franchises in its business. The company is in the process of developing a business plan to present to potential investors. The following are various projected cost data for a typical sandwich shop. What is the contribution of each order sandwich to covering fixed expenses? Okay. So the average sandwich sells for $4 with the cost of food being $2. Okay, so we've got the 1 is going to be the $4 minus the $2 for the food. And that's where most people would stop and say $2. But if you go up here in the problem, we see that the advertising and the royalty, everything else is fixed, right? But the advertising and royalty is variable, so that's 10.5%. So $4 times 0.105 is 42 cents. So we get $1.58 is your answer for 1. Okay, what is the projected monthly break even in units? Okay, so now we have to add up our expenses. There's the first fixed expenses. So we've got $500 a month for the lease, $500 a month for the equipment, $240 a month. No, that's for a year. So that's going to be $20 a month for license, be $2,000 a month for salaries, utilities of $400 a month, and then $1,500 per year is $125. Add those up. We get $3,545. And we divide that by $1.58. We need to sell 2,244 sandwiches each month in order to break even. A potential franchisee has a target before tax profit of $2,000 a month. What level of sales in units and dollars must be achieved to meet the franchise's profit goal? Okay, so number 3 here, we're going to take the 335.45 plus 2,000 and divide that by the 158. Is going to equal 3,510. That's rounded up, 9.49. That's in units, but then we can also take the 35.45 fixed cost plus the target profit of 2,000 and divide that by $1.58 divided by 4 is 0.4. Is actually 0.395. Okay, so 55.45 divided by 0.395. We need 14,038 in sales. This franchisee has a target after-tax profit of $1,800 a month, and they have what must be achieved. Their tax rate is 35%. So number 4, we've got the same 35.45 plus 1,800 divided by 1 minus the tax rate, which is 0.35, all over $1.58. 1800.65 divide is $2,769.23 plus 35.45 equals 63,114. 6,114.23, and we divide that by $1.58, and that'll round up to 39,097. We can also take the same 6,314.23 and divide that by the 0.395%, or 0.395, 39.5%. Is 15,986. You can check that by taking this number of units, 3,997, and multiplying it by the price of $4 per unit. Then we get 15,988, so $2 rounding error there. So yeah, that checks out. And then number 5, what is the degree of operating leverage of a typical sandwich shop at the volume level needed to achieve the before tax profit of $2,000 per month? So that's up here. The degree of operating leverage. So we've got 14,038 is our sale. This is number 5, right? 14,038 was our sales required for the 2,000 minus our variable costs. Our variable costs, variable cost percentage is 60.5%. Is 8,490. I'm just going to round this to 93. That gives us contribution margin of 5,545. You can check that out by taking the 14,035. 038, excuse me, and multiplying it by the 0.395, and we get 5545.01. So that checks out. Then we take off our fixed cost. Our fixed cost was the 3545, and that gives us the 2,000. Okay, so that gives us the income statement. From that, we get the degree of operating leverage. To calculate the degree of operating leverage, you take the 5,545, the contribution margin, divide it by the 2,000. Is 2.7725. 2.7725. I round answer to 2 places, so 2.77. From the sales volume level needed to achieve the monthly pre-tax profit goal of 2,000, what would be the percentage sales if if sales change by 5%. Okay, so that's how this degree of operating leverage works. Number 6, if sales increase by 0.05, 5%, times the degree of operating leverage, 2.77. Income would increase by 13.8 or 0.1385 or 13.85%. Let me go ahead and come over here and prove that. Carve a little bit of space right here. 5% increase in sales is 14,038. Enter. 1.05 times. That would give us sales of 14,740. I'm going to round up there. Our variable costs also increase by 5%, so 8,493. 1.05% gives us 8,009. I'm just going to round that up. 18. So 14,740 is going to give you 5,822 contribution margin minus our fixed costs of 3,545. Gives us 2,277. 2,277 divided by 2,000 equals equals 1.1385. So the 1385, so that checks out. Okay. Okay, we have Lightning Incorporated's sales budget showed the following projections by quarter for the coming year. Inventory on December 31st of the year is expected to be 20,000 units. The quantity of finished goods at the end of each quarter is equal to 7% of next quarter's budgeted sales. Calculate the number of units to be produced in the third quarter. Okay, so the third quarter sales is going to be 140,000. Add the desired ending inventory, that'll be 7% of 160,000. So that will be 11,200. So we add that, but we take off the 7% of the 140. Is 9,800 because that's in beginning inventory. We don't have to make it if it's already there. And so will be 141,400 units that need to be produced in the third quarter. Okay, number 5, West Company budgeted the following credit sales during the current year. September 75,000, October 108,000, November 90,000, December 96,000. Experience has shown that cash from credit sales is received as follows: 10% in the month of sale, 50% in the month following sale, and 35% in the second month after sale. 5% is uncollectible. All collections in the month of sale are subject to a 2% cash discount. How much total cash can West expect to receive in November? So set up our matrix here. And we're going to have month of sale, so that would be November, 50% in the first month. That would be October, and 35% in the second month, so that would be September. So we need September, October, and November. Okay. So September was 75,000. And that we're going to collect 35% of that in November. So that will be 26,250. October was 108,000. And that's 50%. So that's 54,000. And then November, we sell 90,000, but we only collect 10% of that. And of that 10%, we give a 2% discount, so we actually only collect 98% of that. So 8,820. Add that all up. Is 89,070. That will be the cash collected from our credit sale in November. Cash collected in November from our credit sale. Word it correctly there. Okay, number 6. The Shoecraft Company budgeted sales for January, February, and March of 80,000, 60, and 50 respectively. 70% of sales are on credit. The company collects 60% of its credit sales the month following sale, 35% the second month, and 5% is not collected. Shoecraft mailed all statements to customers at the end of the month with a term 130 net 60. What is Shoecraft's expected budgeted cash receipts in March? So they don't collect anything in March, right? Well, that's not true. That's not true. 70% of sales are on credit. So we've got January, February, and March. All right, let's do the easy one, which is March. 50,000. If 70% are on credit, that means 30% are cash. And so for March, we will collect 15,000. Okay. In January, sales are 80,000. And that will be 35%. Is 28,000. Whoops. Except no. That's not 28,000. Let me move this over, 15,000. But that will be 70% of that, because so 19,600, because 30% of the sales are cash. And then January, we've got 80,000. And 70% of those are credit. And then we collect, well, let's start this one over. I may have made a mistake on that. So have the same setup: March, January, February, and March. So the March number is right, the 15,000, right? Because 50% 30% of 50,000 is 15,000. So the March number is right. Then in February, we're going to have 70% of the sales, which is 60,000, is 42,000. And then we collect 35% of that, is 14,700. Yeah, I did make a mistake back there. Okay. And then January, we sold 80,000. 70% was on credit. Of that, we're going to collect 60%. That would be 33,600, but we're only going to get 99% of that. Whoa. Hit some key too many times. 80,000. We get 33,264. Add that together. And we get 62,964 on that one. Okay. And then number 7, the Crown Company must decide whether to make or buy Part 128 PC. Although Crown's idle equipment could be used to produce up to 10,000 units of the part, the company needs only 7,000 units. The annual cost of making part is as follows. Allocated general manufacturing overhead costs. So since that's allocated, we don't include that in the cost. Depreciation on existing equipment, 15,000. That's a committed cost. Annual setup and maintenance cost, 20,000. Direct materials cost is 5. Direct labor cost is 6. And variable manufacturing overhead is 4 for $15 per unit. So we've got $15 per unit of variable costs plus additional setup and maintenance costs will be 20,000 divided by 7,000 units. Is 2.86 rounded. Okay, so the depreciation on the existing equipment, that's committed. We can't get rid of that, so that doesn't come into play. And the allocated, that's going to be there no matter what. So we've got 1786 in total additional cost versus 20. So we are better off to go ahead and make it. Number 8, the Motor Corporation manufactures machine parts for boat engines. The CEO, James Hamilton, is considering an offer from a subcontractor who would provide 3,000 units of product, AB 100, for Hamilton at a price of $230,000. If Motor Corp does not purchase these parts from a subcontractor, it must produce them in-house with the following unit costs. In addition to the above costs, if the company produces part AB 100, it would incur incremental fixed overhead costs of 10,000. Incremental would just be an additional fixed overhead cost. What would be the impact on short-term operating income if the company were to accept the offer from the subcontractor? Okay, so allocated fixed overhead will be there regardless, so we don't include that in our analysis. We've got the 40 plus the 25 plus the 15 plus the additional 10,000 divided by 3,000. And you can do this in total or you can do it in unit the way I'm doing it. So we get $3.33. So that's 83.33 per unit. 230,000 divided by 3,000 parts would be 76.67. So we would be better off to buy it in this case, right? We save that. So it says what would be the difference? 83.33 minus 667 would be $6.66 times 3,000. Basically, it would be 20,000 when we get rid of the rounding error. We would be $20,000 better off, right? Okay, number 9. 3 Stars Incorporated manufactures prefabricated houses. The firm's president, Michelle Brown, is interested in determining whether it would be better to manufacture the doors used in houses or buy these doors from a supplier. The following information based on production of 500 doors has been gathered by the company's management accountant to help determine the best option. Of the fixed overhead cost, 3 Stars estimates it could save $5 per unit of miscellaneous fixed overhead if it purchases the doors and allocates all other costs elsewhere. The company's total cost to purchase the $500 from the door, 500 doors from the supplier, would be $5,500. So based on short term, okay. So we've got the 35, the 50, and the 10. Nope. Yeah, that's variable overhead. Okay. So that's going to be 95 right there. We also have administrative salaries. Those aren't going away. Property tax, that's not going away. Insurance isn't going away. Utilities are probably not going away, but we are getting rid of the $5 of fixed cost. So we're looking at $100 times 500 doors, $50,000. So we would be $5,000 better off to go ahead and make the doors ourselves. Yeah, 50,000 better off to make it ourselves. All right. So now we've got we want to determine on 10. We want to determine which one. This gets into like theory of constraints, constraints per unit. Labor time is going to be the minimum. So what you do there is you get, in order to determine what is the most profitable when you have a constraint, is to put the contribution margin per unit of constraint. So which is the most profitable product if there is no labor constraint? So number one is selling price is 160, or X. Selling price is 160. Raw materials is 80. That gives us 80. Y is 200. Raw materials is 100. Gives us 100. And Z is 210. 110 in raw materials. Oh, I'm sorry, I did demand. Well, I did the 160, right? Okay, we got 190 here in 100, so that's going to be 90. That's what happens when you get in a hurry. 180 is the selling price here, is 70. So the most profitable one with labor is no constraint is Y, the second one. Then 2, what if the labor is the constraint? So we take the 80, divide it by the 20 minutes, we get $4 per minute. Here we take the 90, divide it by 28 minutes, we get $3.214 per minute. And with Z, we've got the $70 divided by 12 minutes is $5.83 per minute. And so if labor is the constraint, then Z is the most profitable one of those. And we don't have the amount of labor that we can allocate, so we can't figure out, how much of each of these we should make. Okay, number 11. Air Travel Inc. manufactures a wide variety of parts for commercial aircraft, including airplane engines. The component is purchased by original equipment manufacturers such as Boeing for use in larger and more powerful outboards. The units sell for $10,000 each, and sales averages 2,000 units per year. Recently, Air Travel's major competitor lowered the price to the equivalent part for $9,500. The market is very competitive, and Air Target realized it had to meet the new price or lose significant market share. The controller assembled the following data for the year, and this is for 2,000 units. This it says calculate the target cost for maintaining current market share and profitability. Okay. So our current cost is 16 million. So we have sales of 2,000 times $10,000 per unit equals $20 million. Our current total is $16 million. Our current expenses, $16 million. That gives us $4 million in profit. So this is where we work backwards. We need to come up with 2,000 times 9,500 So we're only going to generate revenue of 19 million. But we want the same profitability of 4 million. Right? So that means our target cost is 15 million. And so you go through there and you see where you can cut, hopefully without denigrating the quality of that. Okay. And finally, number 12, Farm Company manufactures, operates a contract manufacturing plant in London, England. The plant produces a variety of pharmaceutical drugs for companies around the world. Cycle time is a critical success factor for Farm Company, which has developed a number of measures of manufacturing speed. The company has studied the matter and found that competitive contract manufacturers have manufacturing cycle efficiency time of about 40%. When last major Farmco's manufacturing cycle efficiency was 35%. At Farmco, cycle time is defined as the beginning point when the order taking is complete. Some key measures of the most recent months are as follows. So manufacturing cycle efficiency. Manufacturing cycle efficiency is the time spent processing divided by the cycle time. Okay, so cycle time is from the time you receive the order until you complete the order. Okay. All right. So we need to go through here. New product development is in neither one. Materials handling is in the cycle time. So that one, but is not in the processing. Order setup is in both cycle time. Well, it's not in the machine maintenance is in the cycle time. Order scheduling is in the cycle time. Inspection of the complete order is in the cycle time. Packing and moving to storage and ship is. Manufacturing is in both. And I think everything else is there. So everything but the 45 is in the cycle time. So we add that all up. I get 56 for that and 21 for the processing. So 21 divided by the 56 is we get 37.5%. All right. So what does that tell us? Well, we've improved a little bit, but we still have a ways to go to be world class. And the way you do these sort of things is you benchmark against other companies. This stuff can be found in trade journals, various sorts of things that kind of thing. But that's manufacturing cycle efficiency. So okay, so that's the review. I would wish you the best of luck, and I hope you do very well.